Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows, while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Welcome. Happy 1 year anniversary.
Happy 1 year anniversary. And it's our 100th episode.
A hundo.
100 episodes.
The Benjamin Franklins.
I'm just more of just reeling, and I can't believe we've done 100 of these.
Episodes. Yeah, you're not sick of me yet.
No, I'm not. Something must be wrong with me.
I know.
No, I love you, and I love doing this podcast with you, and this has been so much fun. No ending in sight.
I know,
we're still coming up with themes. The greatest thing about doing this podcast, and something that we realized 5 seconds into creating this podcast, is we are never going to run out of shows.
Oh yeah,
even if we stop doing themes, we're never going to run out of shows. Like,
there's always so much new stuff.
And every time I think, I'm like, okay, how are we going to come up with themes? You're just like, oh, I have 5 more in my back pocket, and I'm just like, all right, so yeah. So this is not only is this our 100th episode, not only is this our 1 year anniversary, but we're doing a show that has kind of become a recent favorite of ours.
Oh yeah, it's. So our theme, are we going to?
Yes, we are now. Thank you very much. We are. We have started June, and so we are doing summer blockbusters. Not necessarily they were blockbuster movies, but in the sense that we are doing TV shows that were adapted from a movie.
Yes.
Whether or not that movie was adapted from something else is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah,
just
if it was
specifically,
like a book before or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have, I think, at least one of those this month.
Yeah.
As far as I know, we have at least one off the top of my head. But we are doing a show that I think this might be, like, in comparison to when we're recording it, like the newest show we've ever done. Because the show just came out a month ago.
Yeah.
It's only been a month.
Yeah.
We are doing the 4 seasons, which we originally weren't going to do because the movie was not available anywhere, and we kind of made it, at least, if we're going to do it this month, all the movies have to at least be available to rent on Prime or YouTube, Fandango, Google Play, whatever. But we were very lucky because the 4 seasons of the film from 1981 was added to Netflix like a week after
it was such a hit.
The show premiered. And, so we're really excited. We originally were going to have a cocktail for this, but we are recording this much earlier in the day than we had anticipated.
So that might be our episode we record later tonight.
I was actually going to say the episode we are recording because I already have the preparations for it. So we are doing the 4 seasons, and I can't believe it's our 100th episode. Yeah. I just keep seeing, like, the little marquee, and
it's really surreal because when we were starting this last year, I was about to go into surgery in 4 weeks for my Achilles. So that is also, we're coming up to that anniversary, and I can't believe just how far I've come from that surgery as well. I mean, that was a lot of the anticipation of that surgery was the anticipation of the suffering after, and I was pretty lucky. It was more of just inconvenience than any real pain that I was in. Thank you to the meds.
Nice.
But I mean, and I can't believe it's been a year since
I remember
that surgery.
Post-surgery, us recording with your leg propped up on the other chair. We kind of had like a setup in a way so you can prop your leg up, and I remember you having to wheel yourself around in your little knee scooter, and you would overexert yourself, and you would get tired, and I would get fussy with you about it, and you would say, "I'm sorry." Then I'm fine because you could do whatever you want.
And then you'd go get me a snack or something.
Yeah, because you can do no wrong in my eyes.
Boo.
All right, so we are doing the 4 seasons. we can kind of talk about it being our 100th episode just throughout the episode.
Yeah.
We're kind of doing it. This month is going to be obviously different because we're going to have to kind of talk about the movie and the TV show. It's going to be in different capacities because some of these TV shows are remakes that have very similar storylines. They're prequels. They're a complete reimagination. They're a completely different thing just with a same title and maybe a similar plot. It's just continuations, spiritual sequels. Like we did a little bit of everything this month.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like about this, that we discovered about this, is that they're not always like a direct copy of the movie, that it has a little bit of creative license to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say this one and maybe one other show that we're doing this month where the plots are more similar than different.
Yeah.
I would say. I think that's a fair assessment.
Oh, yeah.
And so we will kind of talk about that. We'll talk about the differences, if we liked it, if we didn't like it. I'm going to give like a basic plot of the movie and then a basic plot of the pilot, and then we can kind of talk about that. So this is going to be a really fun month. I know last month we had a blast doing adult animation, but this one has been a joy to write. I feel like I've put my writing skills to the test. And I've done a pretty good job. I will just go ahead and talk myself up. All right, so
you always do a great job.
I know, but sometimes I feel like there are certain times with certain TV shows where I feel like maybe I don't want to say half-assed, but I just leave it very vague, or I'm too specific and I'm too particular. But I think for this one, it kind of made me edit myself, and so like I feel like I did a really good job so far. So go ahead and give us some episode and series and movie information. I got to remember that.
Oh, all right. Okay, The Four Seasons, Lake House. The Four Seasons is an American comedy drama that premiered on Netflix on May 1st, 2025.
It's June 2nd.
With 8 episodes. 2 weeks after its premiere, the series renewed for a second season.
Oh, you sent me that screenshot, and we were both so happy.
Yeah. The series was created by Tina Fey, Lang Fisher, and Tracy Wigfield. The creators also wrote the pilot, and it was directed by Robert Pulcini and Sherry Springer Berman. The Four Seasons is based on a film of the same name, originally released on May 22nd, 1981. The film was written and directed by Alan Alda. Alda also starred in the movie along with Carol Burnett, Len Carew, Sandy Dennis, Rita Moreno, Jack Weston, and Bess Armstrong. The title of the film is a reference to the composition The Four Concerti by Vivaldi. Those compositions, along with others by Vivaldi, constitute the movie's score. Both the series and film have a similar storyline that centers around a group of friends consisting of 3 couples that go on vacation together 4 times a year, 1 per season. The friend group is truly tested when one of the couples split up and one begins dating a younger woman he is trying to incorporate into the group. Both the series and the film deal with how everyone adjusts and deals with the dynamic shift, some better than others. The cast of the series includes Steve Carell as Nick, Colman Domingo as Danny.
My favorite.
I love him. Tina Fey as Kate, Will Forte as Jack, Anne's husband, Kerri Kenney as Anne, Nick's wife, and Marco Calvani as Claude, Danny's husband.
Sorry, Jack is Kate's husband. Sorry, I wrote Anne twice.
Yes. And Erica Henningsen as Ginny, Nick's new girlfriend. The series made a few changes from the film to make it more relatable to a modern day audience, but essentially follows the same themes and format.
Yeah.
You can currently watch the entire series and the movie on Netflix.
They are both available. I highly recommend watching both of them.
Totally.
All right. So first and foremost, so you get to brag that you've introduced me to a lot of movies that I've not only that I've never seen, but I've never heard of.
Correct.
Which I think most people would be surprised at because I am like the movie nerd guy.
Yes.
I am the movie trivia guy. So you have introduced me to a lot of movies, and this was one of them. I believe it was on Max at some point, or Hulu, or one of those.
Yeah, one of them.
Maybe it was on Netflix. I remember you were like, oh, let's watch this. You're like, I love this movie. And so we watched it, and then it was interesting with Tina Fey and Kerri Kenney and all of them, all the cast, like kind of talking about the movie, and that they had all most of them had seen it and they were like fans of it. And I was like, wow, that must have been like very specific to the era. I love the cast, and I mean, like, I love everyone in the movie, but I have never heard of this movie before. So what was kind of your history with this movie?
So I actually think I went to see this in the movies with my mom.
Okay.
And then it ended up coming on TV later.
It feels like a TV movie type thing.
So I could be wrong. Maybe it was a TV movie, but I think it was an actual movie.
It was released in theaters.
It was released in theater. So, okay. Yeah. I'm like backtracking in my head. But I mean, you have to remember, like, Carol Burnett was like the comedian
1981.
Kind of my era of the 1970s. There was the Carol Burnett show. I mean, she was famous for the famous Gone with the Wind curtains dress that she wore. And do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Alan Alda was obviously MASH was in its peak at that time.
1981. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So those were particularly two people that I knew, like, just from their television career. Rita Moreno was pretty famous as well at the time. Sandy Dennis, Lynn Carew, maybe not too much.
Yeah.
Bess Armstrong, I think that was like one of her first movies, if not her first movie.
Played Angela's mother in My So-Called Life, another show we've done.
So, I mean, these were all a little bit of the people that I kind of knew of. Yeah. So it was just kind of one of the movies of the time. So I totally remember it. And what else did you ask me? I'm sorry. I was kind of rambling.
Asking your history with the movie.
Yeah. So I immediately loved the concept because, again, this was like 12-year-old Anna.
Yeah.
And I always was like, because I had an older sister and because I had an older brother, I always would kind of put these things in my head of like what they were doing and that I would eventually get to do those things.
Yeah.
Because especially between me and my brother, I always felt a lot like, oh, Sess gets to do things that I don't get to do.
Right.
Like always, especially it's a 10-year gap. So, you know, my mom was not going to let me like do things that he was allowed to do.
She wasn't going to let you like join the army.
Correct. And that's what he was actually getting out of the army.
He was 20. He would have been 22.
Yeah. He had just gotten out of the army in 1981. Yeah. So anyway, I think I love the idea that there were these friends, and I think, you know, they were friends via work or via college or via just local like experiences where they've met in town, and that they traveled together as couples.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I kind of want, I hope I get to do that when I'm older and I have, you know, my friend group, that I hope that we get to do that. And then I love the idea that they were taking vacations once a season because, as you know, because last night I just asked you about going on vacation in December.
Hell yeah.
I like planning things ahead to give myself something to look forward to.
Right.
And it's usually very seasonally. It's either around your birthday, my birthday, something in the summer, something in December at the end of my semester. So
you're
sort of like this
kinda
cycle.
Do have like a one per season
thing. There's a fall,
thing.
there's a spring, a summer, and a winter.
I never thought of that.
It's my life has really truly become the 4 seasons, at least in our relationship.
Right.
And
that's funny.
You know, a lot of times we include the friend group too. So
last October we went to Biloxi for my birthday.
So I kind of loved this concept of that you had a trip that you were always going to have planned. It was something year round to look forward to, fun, something new. And I think 12-year-old Anna was just looking forward to that in her future.
Yeah. I could see myself watching this as like a teen or a preteen, because you would have been like 12. I was like a preteen or a young teen and watching it. And I've always loved movies about like friend groups, and I've always loved movies like that have a really great, I love ensemble movies. And you know, I feel like coming of age is always kind of specified to a specific era of your life, but I feel like there are plenty of movies where the adults are coming of age, where the adults are kind of entering the next phase of their life. I think all of their kids are grown and they're in college and they're starting to do their own thing, and now they're kind of starting this new chapter of their lives, and some of them thrive in it and some of them don't. And that's what happens in real life when your whole life has kind of revolved around your kids or revolved around one thing, and then you realize that you're not that person. You're not just that person. You're many other things. It was a really interesting, like, I guess, like, you could in a way call it like a nice little psychological study of, of how we handle new things, how we handle change, and how all the different couples were so different and how they communicated with each other and their dynamic. And it was just really watching the movie, because I watched the movie for the first time with you. I don't even remember how long ago it was.
I was going to say
such
it
a
was
long time
very
ago.
early.
I had just moved in because I remember it was when the small TV was on top of the dresser.
Yes.
And it was my 32-inch Samsung.
Because I did not have a TV in my bedroom at the time.
And I was like, you are insane. We have to put a TV in here.
I know. See, you've broken me.
Yeah, now we have a big-ass TV in our room.
I know. Gosh. No TV to like a 50-inch or something.
No TV to a 32-inch TV to a 65-inch TV
there
or
you
55-inch TV. Yeah, so we watched this, I would say probably within maybe the first year or two that I lived here.
Yeah.
And that I moved in here. And, I mean, I liked it. It wasn't anything that... and I don't mean this in a bad way. It just didn't like stand out to me. I liked it. I loved the cast. There were certain scenes that I thought were really funny, but for the most part, it was just kind of it was just a good movie. Like there was nothing like, to me, there was like nothing special about it. But watching the series with you and then watching the movie, I now have a bigger appreciation for the movie, although I have a lot more criticisms about the movie.
Oh, it did not age well,
yeah,
for sure.
There are certain elements to it that I did not like, just coming from a divorced family and being able to relate to it in that way, and how certain parents are viewed a certain way because they're a man or they're a woman. I think that was like a big thing in the original movie, whereas in the series, it kind of is more of these are just human beings and they are flawed and they're not bad people. They just make mistakes, and that doesn't make them a bad person.
Right.
But yeah, I very much appreciate the movie now after watching the series, although I do obviously prefer the series over the movie. This was also during a time where people were just writing really unlikable characters, and I think that was my biggest hurdle with the movie, was like, there were moments where I was like, I wouldn't hang out with a single one of these people. But with the series, I'm like, I'd be best friends with all of them. Like,
oh my gosh, totally. Yeah.
And they were just written a lot more likable. And I know that may not be reality for people, but, we can be likable and unlikable. We can be both. You can be both.
They're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Yeah.
There are times where I do things, and I do things that are good. I do things that are dumb, and we're human beings, and that's fine. So I remember when the trailer for the series came out, and you nearly shit your pants. You were so excited.
I was.
You halted reality for a second, and you were like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's 4 seasons. And to me, I'm not thinking like you love this movie. This is, maybe not one of your childhood favorites, but a movie that like always stuck out to you, and a movie you always remembered, a movie that you're very fond of. And so I just kind of underestimated that, because I already knew that was coming out, and I was like, yeah, it's like Tina Fey and Steve Carell, and you're like, what? You're like, can you play the trailer? And I was like, yeah, and it was coming out like the next week or something like that.
I could not wait.
It was coming out in like a few days, and you were so excited, and then you were like, we have to do this for the pod. Like, we have to do this. Before the show even came out, you were like, we have to do this for the pod. And I was like, okay, like, fine, and because we're doing this theme this month, and so we were like, that's perfect with how it lines up. Just so happens we both fell in love with the series, and it usually takes us a while to go through a season, but we finished it in like 3 days or something like that. One day, it was like one day for each season, pretty much. And
I did like how they broke that up, because in each season is 2 episodes.
Yes.
So it gave you a little bit more time to understand what was going on, because like in the movie, I mean, it was only like 25 minutes a season or so.
Yeah.
I mean, if that. So yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of the pilot for the series, or the first episode of the series?
The first episode was great because it was just really the setup of everyone, and I liked how they updated the couples and kind of gave you a little bit of context and who each of them were and their relationships a little bit, and it didn't give away too much right off the bat.
Right.
And so you still were kind of left a little bit wondering what was going to be happening, because that's the way the movie was as well. Like, they pick each person up in the movie.
Yeah.
They're like all in one station wagon or something.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, how is this happening? But along with all their food and luggage. But again, they come together and they're having crawfish for dinner that night. And of course, everyone in Louisiana is having a stroke about this crawfish boil that they're having. So we'll talk about that later maybe. But I loved that it brought me back immediately, because you could identify who was supposed to be who from the pilot to the movie.
Right. Well, they kept the same names except for, Claudia became Claude.
Yes. Yeah. And then, so I just, it was an immediate attachment. I knew I had to finish it. I mean, we were going to finish it whether I liked it or not.
Right.
But and the only reason we didn't finish it sooner was I think you had to go to work eventually one of the days.
One of the days, yeah.
So, what did you think of it?
I immediately liked it because of the cast. I am a fan of, I wasn't familiar with the actor who played Claude, but everyone else in the series, I have loved them forever.
From something else.
Kerri Kenney, I've been watching since The State on MTV. On MTV, there was The State, and there was Viva Variety. Then, of course, there's Reno 911, where I think that's probably her most famous role. And then playing Jerusha on Superstore.
Jerusha. I said Jerusha.
You're thinking of Veruca Salt.
That's it.
She played Jerusha on Superstore, which she was really funny in that. But playing Deputy Weigel on Reno 911 is probably like what people know her most as. But I've just watched her for such a long time. She is such a great character actress, and she is so funny. But I loved it in this, where I got to see her really act in this series.
Oh yeah,
be more than just like the funny
sidekick,
like the mom that's like the kooky mom, or like the kooky friend, or the funny cop on Reno 911. Like, she kind of always plays like kind of like a one-dimensional thing, and that's unfortunately what you get kind of held down in comedies. You usually just end up playing like the same kind of role. But I really getting to see her act, especially in the last episode, like the last two episodes, but specifically the last episode, it was just really great to watch her be the great actress that I've always known she's been, and to see her kind of get her flowers for this, and see all these posts about like Kerri Kenney's the breakout star of 4 seasons. I'm like, breakout? She's been around for like 30 years. What are y'all talking about? Like, I've been watching this woman on MTV since I was like 10. And I, of course, Tina Fey and Steve Carell.
Awesome.
And Will Forte. 3 of the funniest people to ever exist. Colman Domingo is probably like one of the most versatile actors. Just watching him in this and then remembering him in Zola, I'm just like, this guy can really play anything. Like any
Oscar nominated past 2 years.
Yeah. And the guy that plays Claude, I'm not familiar with him, but he was hilarious. He was so funny, and he was so like sincere and sweet. It was like, it really was the characters where like, this person, that person. Like we have a Jack, a Kate. And I feel like with the movie, it was very like 1% yuppie type, not yuppie because they had kids, but like, just very like kind of, I don't want to say privileged, but it was just harder to relate to the movie characters, because a lot of them were just like kind of assholes. Yeah. And in the series, they were just a lot more relatable, a lot more likable. And I wanted to keep watching their story continue. When season 1 ended, this was originally sold as a miniseries. But once again, I think they had in the back of their head, well, if this ends up becoming successful, we did leave it on a cliffhanger.
Oh, yeah.
So we can leave this open-ended, and we could come back to it if we want to. They end up getting renewed 2 weeks after it premieres. So clearly, this became like the show on Netflix for a minute. And, shows come and go, and that's fine. But, like, this seems like something that's going to, at least for us, something that's going to be very special to us for a long time, because when I was writing out the episode, I was like, I want to rewatch the series again. Like, I want to rewatch everything again.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, the one other thing that I will say that I liked about the pilot was it pulled an Ozark opening.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, each season at the top of each episode would, like, have an embellishment of, like, something that represented the season and had a little context clue of something that was going to happen or that you needed to look for in the episode, kind of like how Ozark opened each episode.
I didn't notice it until you pointed out. I think we were like 3 or 4 episodes
in
really? When you pointed it out. And you were like, the strawberries. I'm just like, what? And you're like, the strawberries, they're right there. And then this, and this. I'm like,
the crawfish, the fire.
I did not pay attention to that at all. You're like, you were probably just like my boo.
Exactly like you do me.
Yeah, but this show is so cute, and it's so, I mean, it has you. It had me crying, laughing, and had me regular crying.
I was in tears at one point.
It gave me all the feels. Made me feel nostalgic. It reminded me of our friend group. It reminded me of past friend groups. It reminded me of just friendships in general, and that kind of brings to. Let's discuss the major differences between the series and the movie, but we're going to kind of do that during the plot summary.
Yeah.
We're going to be kind of chatting throughout that too as well. So kind of our topic that we don't have to delve too deeply into, because I think we've talked about it a little bit. You and I have had several different friend groups over the years, and you still have several and throughout different pockets of your life. But can you think of a time where there was, like, you don't have to be specific, you can just kind of talk about how it made you feel. I'm going to be a therapist for a second. How it made you feel. Okay. Can you think of a time where, like, you had a friend group, kind of the dynamic kind of changed and you kind of felt it and you kind of knew, like, nothing is going to be the same anymore?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and I can say it recently, and it was because of a breakup with the couple. And the thing that was difficult was, you know me, I am a person who I mean, you have to, like, really emotionally or verbally assault me to really ruin a friendship.
Right.
I do not get easily offended. I mean, you have to do something very pointed to me to lose my friendship. And so, but that doesn't mean that I can't be mad at you or annoyed with you. I mean, those things are just natural feelings. So, when the couple broke up and then there was a new person that was coming into the group, I mean, we were all very welcoming to the new person. And I think a few of us were at kind of a standstill of what we were going to do about the person that was no longer part of the couple. And several people drew lines in the sand and decided that they had really just been friends because they were part of the couple.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, I hate saying that, but I think it was really kind of true. I think things that also made it a little bit easier was that the person that was no longer part of the friend group was no longer living in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made that break a little bit easier in the sense of, comparing to 4 seasons where they were all friends.
Right.
And there had been nothing that Anne had done to, like, hurt the other people in the group. Like, she was just a victim of her marriage. And so I think it's hard when things like that happen. I mean, there are also other times in friend groups, like even with girlfriends or guy friends, I will also say, like, I had a big kind of junior high friend group, and a couple of the girls within that group kind of started fighting. Like, one's partner got involved into a fight on social media, took it to another level, attacking the friends. I wasn't part of the fight. I was kind of an outsider watching it and then knowing that there were friendships that were broken. And, it was a struggle because, like, I remember telling you what was going on, and I was like, babe, I can't imagine you getting involved in a dispute I had with my friends. And you were like, I wouldn't even go there.
No.
Unless it was like something that was really, truly hurting me. And you would just be like, okay, you just need to stop.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't attack my friends.
No.
And that's sort of what happened. And what was sad was, you know, some of these friends had been friends since like elementary school, had, you know, deep relationships. And because of like this one thing, it was all over, and it's still all over.
That sucks.
And I think that what's also hard is I'm still friends with everybody, but we now don't really see each other as much. Like the pockets of friends still see one another.
Right.
I still talk to the pocket of friends, but we used to have like an annual Christmas party. Mm-hmm. We had pool parties before, and now none of that exists. And you know, it's sad, but I think in the 4 seasons of a year and in the seasons of your life, friends come and go. And I think that that's just natural. It can be a natural thing where you just don't have things in common. There might be little spats or something in your life, and things change. I also do think that it can happen in the reverse as well, where like someone who wasn't a part of your life comes back later, and you realize that maybe things have changed and you can be friends. Yeah. And so I also think of that as well, because I feel like there are a couple of people that are now in my life who, like, I will say in college or high school, like, you know, Tara. I mean, and that friend group, I mean, I did not really talk to them in high school. I thought they were too cool for me, and they were part of the smoking section, or there were sorority sisters that I wasn't really friends with in college because they ran with a different fraternity group and that wasn't mine. Yeah. But now you kind of are like, God, we were stupid when we were teenagers, you know? So, and then we have a lot in common. So I feel like the seasons in your life can change and friends can drift away, but then you also have those that are constantly coming in and making new ones. So, you know, I think friend dynamics are always evolving. So yeah. What about you?
Well, I've talked about this before, but I had a very large friend group from high school that we kind of it was very much like we were friends because we dressed the same, we listened to the same music, we, you know, all looked the same, you know, it was like we all had the same like hair. I mean, it was like literally like we were just another clique in high school, and we just hung out because we had similar interests. But just because you have similar interests doesn't mean that you are compatible as friends. And as we got older, it just became more and more complicated because people in the friend group were like dating, and then they would break up, and then one of them would start dating someone else in the friend group, and that was one of their friends, and it would just, you know, affect everything. And then eventually there was a couple, they're still together, so, and they have kids today, still to this day, so good for them. But there was kind of this one couple that dated dated someone in the group, and then they started dating, and that kind of was the one that kind of split everyone up. Oh. And that was kind of and then also when me and my high school girlfriend that was also in the group, when we broke up, that was kind of like the first, I guess, line in the sand is what you would call it. We were very young, we were very immature. It was very much like some people hung out with me, some people just hung out with her, and then those people kind of chose sides, and it got very messy. And then when another couple broke up, and then another friend in the group started dating them, it was it just got very complicated. And then eventually it kind of became, like you said, like little pockets of a friend group where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go hang out with like Josh and Chris, but I can't tell this person that I'm going to go hang out with them, but because they'll be like, well, why didn't you invite me? And it will just become this whole thing. So eventually it kind of just became just us hanging out with people individually. I cannot remember I think the last time our friend group was like actually together was probably at one of like the little shows that Tyler's band would have at Northgate Tavern.
Oh, wow.
That would have been like 2008 or 9 or something like that.
Tyler just posted a video from
Hostile Takeover.
Yeah.
That was the name of their band. I have pictures on my Facebook page.
That's funny.
But so unlike you, unfortunately, it's not so much that I hold a grudge against people, because I don't. I'm a very forgiving person. I'm a very kind of, I just realized after a long time that like people, they are who they are, and they're not going to change, and I'm not going to change for them, and they're not going to change for me. But my friendships always felt like a one-way street.
Yeah.
I always felt like I had to put in the effort. I had to make the plans. I had to, rearrange my schedule for them. And if I couldn't do that, then they would get mad at me. And it's like, well, you don't do that for me. So eventually it became easier for me to just cut ties with people than it does. I mean, obviously we've talked about this without a microphone in front of us a million times about how different you and I are in many ways. And one of them is kind of how we deal with people. I feel like I am a lot more, I guess a word is I'm patient with many things, but with other people, I'm not very patient. Once you kind of show me your cards, it's really, or your true self is a nicer way to put it. Once you show me your true self, it's really hard for me to come back from that.
Yeah.
Once you kind of show me that like you're selfish, or that you don't really care about me as a person, let alone a friend, it's hard for me to be like, well, I can let that go. We can still be friends. Like, I'm very much just like, you may not be a bad person, but you are not someone that I want to be friends with.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And I think that, I think it's very noble. I think it's very big of you to be so forgiving towards people and to be such a good friend. Sometimes I think that they don't deserve it, especially from you, because you are such a good person and you are such a good friend.
But I also feel like I may also bother people, because I know like sometimes in the friend group people think I'm bossy, or that I think I know everything, or whatever it is that, their issue is with me. So it could easily go both ways.
Right.
And I always feel like, like I said, nothing short of them like personally, full on, emotionally or verbally assaulting me or attacking me in some way. Like, I guess I just don't feel like, it's worth throwing something away. And I hate using the word throw away, and that's not what you're doing.
Yeah.
I do actually appreciate your perspective on like, if you're like a selfish person, I don't really want to hang out with you. And I appreciate that. Maybe I should not have so many friends. I don't know.
And it doesn't mean that I hate them, and it doesn't mean that I don't like them. It doesn't mean that I wish anything bad on them. It may not even mean that I think we will never be friends again. It's just right now, you are just not someone that I want to spend my time with. And if we can reduce it to you liking my Facebook posts or saying happy birthday on my birthday or something like that, I will return the favor. And it's very much like, I tend to, when I've had enough with a friend, when I've had enough of someone, and I'm reaching a point to where I don't feel like either one of us are getting anything out of the friendship, that is when I'm just like, okay, well, I hate to be that person, but the ball is in your court. Like, I will always be here. Like, I say that to anybody who is friends with me, who may be listening to this, and we're not as close as we used to be. If you're listening to this, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading.
Thank you.
Follow us on Instagram. But I will also say that if you are one of my former friends, if you're someone that we're not as close as we used to be, the door is always open. Yeah. Like, I will always, but I reach a point to where if I reach out to you, because I did this for a long time, where I would reach out to people that I hadn't been as close to. And I've been like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I really miss hanging out with you. I don't know what happened and stuff like that. And the fact that I would finally be like, you know what, time for me to like put myself out there and to be a good person and be a good friend and be maybe the friend that they need. But it's always met with a dead end or nothing. And
Yeah,
so it's
no
just,
text
or
reply,
kind of them lashing out on me for not talking to them. But in my mind, I'm like, you also stopped talking to me. So it's like, it's a never ending cycle. It's pointless to argue about it. It really, both people just need to admit that they fucked up and just move on, or move on, or continue trying to make a friendship, or trying to fix whatever is broken.
I really applaud you for that, because I should learn that. Like, I carry a lot emotionally because I don't cull my friends that way. Yeah. And so, I don't think either of us are right or wrong in the way we have.
And I wish I was more like you when it came to friends. I wish I was a little bit more patient. I wish I was a little bit more understanding and forgiving, because I know I could be. And like I said, none of us are perfect, and we're all just figuring it all out. But to anyone who wants to know, all you have to do is message me, and I will message you back. And so I think that you and I are good friends, and we are very different. But just because we're different, that doesn't make it you or me better or worse when it comes to being a friend. I think you're a really good friend, though. Like, I think you are, and not just because I love you and you're my wife, but like because you're my best friend. But aww. I just think you're a really good friend. We're not even drinking right now, and we're being so sweet.
We are.
But yeah, I always am impressed with how many friendships you still maintain, how much effort you put into all of those friendships. And it's a little like, I'm a little like kind of envious of it a little bit. I'm just kind of like, I wish I could be like that, but there's just something in me that does not allow it. Yeah. And I feel like my feelings, I have to have them on guard. I don't want to be hurt, because I've been burned by people so many times. And it's just like, I'm so cautious when I first meet people. I am so like standoffish. I don't open up. I don't talk. And I feel like people are always really taken aback when I do become comfortable around them, because then I kind of act like I do, and I start acting like me. And I think when I first was introduced into your friend group, so I was once the best Armstrong. You didn't break up with anyone and replace me, but there was a time where I was like the new person in your friend group, and I kind of felt like I had to be a certain way. I felt like I had to kind of be the flexible one. I kind of had to be the one that was like, okay, well, because the way you and I started our relationship was very rocky in the beginning, and your friends knew all of the stuff that had happened, correct, particularly Summer and Alicia, and I knew that like I kind of had to
make amends.
Well, kind of win them over. I mean, like, it was less make amends because I didn't do anything to them.
Yes.
I hurt you, and that was I was making that up to you. I was proving to you that I wasn't that person. To them, I just really wanted to prove to them that like I wasn't a piece of shit. So it was just like, in my mind.
I think another difference was you were not as used to being very active in your, like, you went to work, you went back to your apartment, chilled. You might have gone to like hang out at the guy's house in Shenandoah every now and then, or Rick upstairs, but that was very close. But I am very social, dinners, movies, going to like an event or a parade or something, and I think that was also a jolt for you because you were not used to being around a lot of people.
I loved it, but I wasn't used to it. Yeah.
And I do try to take that into effect, because I'm always like, if you don't want to do it, just let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Either I will go or I'll hang here with you. And because I know everyone's bandwidth is different from being around big groups of people or small groups of people, or your work is also very physical and tiring. So those were things I also had to think of, where I got out a lot because I was sick of being in the house. Right. So it's kind of for different reasons.
Yeah. You and I have kind of, and I've talked about this before, but work very much drains my social battery. And so there are a lot of times, particularly on like a Saturday, because that's usually when we do stuff, I kind of have to amp myself up to like, in order to go out. And I know a lot of times when we go out, especially on Saturday night, when people come over here, it's fine. I'm at home, I'm relaxed, it's fine. But when we have to like go somewhere, I definitely have to like
pump myself up.
And it's not that I'm like, anxious about interacting with Summer, Alicia, and my mom at Total Wine. I don't care about that. I'm fine being around them. I'm comfortable around them. I just have to I don't just want to sit there and not talk. And I think that that's so easy for me to do, especially when I'm tired from work. But I'm like, okay, I'm here, I'm out. Let me just forget that I'm tired for an hour and a half, and let me just interact and talk. I'm not as chatty as y'all are. But I do, I try my best to interact.
But I think that is hard because you just have been up since 6 o'clock. You get home, shower, and we're going out the door.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, and no one faults you, but I get it. I mean, I think if I had just worked on my feet for about 8 hours, I'd be like, I just want to go to the room or go sit in the hot tub, and I don't feel like going to drink 8 cocktails at a liquor tasting.
I had a great time, though.
But we had fun.
Spicy crew for life.
So again, it's like figuring it out and going okay, I really needed this, and I didn't know I needed it, I think that's kind of how I get into that mentality too. Is
I want, because we do so much of, you spend so much time at home or you're traveling for work. I do so much of just going to work and then coming home, going to work, coming home, hanging out with you, doing stuff for the podcast. That takes up a lot of our time. You doing stuff for work, me tending to stuff around the house. It's a lot to just be okay, now let's add on to that, going to go see a play with Alicia, or going to meet them for happy hour. Even just meeting them for happy hour, I'm okay, I have to pump myself up for it. And because interacting socially is kind of hard for me, just because I feel so drained all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just very thankful that you understand that. I've been in many relationships in the past, and I wasn't always met with that understanding. It was always you're antisocial, you don't want to hang out with me, you don't want to go out. And I'm just I'm just fucking tired. It's just,
and I've also learned we've just said no to something that we were asked to, because again, the next week I'm going on a trip, and so I'm looking that Saturday, I just want to spend time with you, because the next week I'm going to be gone.
Yeah.
So we said no, and it was maybe something we would have thought of doing. Yeah. But again, we just have other priorities, and we decided we have boundaries, and not boundaries, but bandwidth, and limitations.
Yeah.
So we were okay, that event we're not going to do just this one time. Maybe the next time it comes up, we'll do it. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So in the end, I think you're, like I've said before, I think you're a really good friend, and I think you put forth a lot of effort into it, and I respect that, and I admire it. I wish I was a little bit more like that, but that's why I have you, and maybe that's why you have me. We kind of give each other a different perspective.
Balance.
And kind of help each other realize, the way I do things isn't perfect, the way you do things isn't perfect, but some type of combination of it works out.
Yeah.
And and I love our friend group, and I love hanging out with them. We're all very, very different people, and that's why I like it so much, because it's never, ever, ever boring.
It's not. And I think we all have something to contribute.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what makes a good friend group too, is that we're not all alike, and we all banter and bicker and laugh and have fun. And
I take pride in being the game master.
Oh yeah, you are. And the mix master.
Oh yeah, the mixologist. Getting everybody toe up.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get into this plot summary. All right, so I'm going to start off kind of talking about the movie, because the movie, as movies do, they have an ending, a middle, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But when you're doing a TV show, the first episode is really the beginning, and then the rest of it is the middle and the end. So obviously the movie wraps up in its own way, whereas with the pilot, it leaves it open-ended because you're continuing more episodes. So with the movie, I'll kind of have a little bit more of a detail, because the movie and TV series are so similar, but there are some key differences that they are not exactly the same. So don't go in thinking that I gave you all the spoilers, because the series
does its own thing. I really liked how they changed a lot of things up.
Me too.
We'll get into that. So we'll kind of give our opinions throughout the summary, and it'll be a little different than others because we'll kind of be chit-chatting throughout the plot summary. So here we go. All right. So the 1981 film and the 2025 series, it both centers around a group of friends that consist of 3 couples. So the overall story and plot points are similar. So we have the film, we are introduced to 3 couples. We have Jack and Kate, Nick and Anne, and Danny and Claudia. Jack and Kate are seemingly, they're kind of like, to everyone to everyone, they seem like the perfect couple.
Oh yeah.
They have very cute banter. They have little inside jokes with each other. They're very fun. They're both very, it's Alda and Carell Burnett. They're hilarious. They're so funny. Their delivery, their chemistry is so great in this. Like, I thought out of everyone, it really was like, I had to remind myself, I'm like, they're not a couple in real life, but they
it was
really
like the
act
dream
like one.
team comedy couple or TV couple at the time.
It's like the couple that if they were a real couple, I would want them to be my parents.
Oh,
Sorry, mom, but like that would be. I would want to hang out with them. I'll just say that I'd want to hang out with them. I love both of them. They're so funny. So they kind of seem like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, they have issues. So Kate is kind of I hate saying alpha, but like she's very organized. She's very self-sufficient. She plans the trips. She is very much like, she's very strong-willed. She's very intelligent. She's very independent. But because she is like that, she feels that she doesn't get like emotional support because everyone's like, it's Kate. She's fine. Like she'll
Yes.
deal with it, which I feel like you could relate to Kate a lot. Which is kind of funny. Because I don't relate to Jack.
No.
Anyway, in a way I do. So she doesn't get a lot of emotional support from Jack. She also feels like Jack would rather be with someone younger who worships him, which I think is more of just kind of like a midlife, not crisis, but a midlife kind of worry when you reach a certain point in a marriage where you're like, well, I'm not getting any younger. And there are a whole lot of young girls out there. And
am I still attractive?
Right. You still want to be, even though you're in your 40s, you still want to be sexy. You still want to be desired. There's nothing wrong with that. And she also kind of feels like Jack is kind of needy. There are times where she is more of a mother, kind of taking care of him. He's kind of he's a little bit of a baby. He's a little needy, kind of helpless. I will say kind of in the series, they paralleled them very well because Jack and Kate were very similar in the movie than they were in the series. I feel like they were a lot alike.
The sandwich scene, like, just...
Yeah.
Like, I was like, please stop. But anyway.
So despite all this, they kind of have their ups and downs throughout the movie, and you think that they might have some marital problems, but they end up kind of working through it, and... They kind of come full circle. A lot of it has to do with other people in the group and different dynamics that change. We'll kind of talk about that in a second. But despite all that, they love each other. They work things out, and they kind of have their happy ending. They're so cute. They're in the movie and in the series. They're both very cute.
I want Tina Fey and Will Forte to be married in real life.
Right.
I don't know who their real spouses are.
Right. That would be awesome. So Danny and Claudia probably get the least amount of screen time. They are more of like side characters, but they are another couple in the friend group. Danny is very pessimistic. He's very frugal. He's very uptight. He's the one that has, okay, the meal costs this much, and you got this, and this, so you owe $14.50 and I owe $9.75. Like, he's that person in the group.
Yes.
And then Claudia is, she's what she continues to say throughout the movie. She's Italian.
So she's loud. I'm Italian.
So she comes across as a little insensitive, a little dramatic,
blunt.
But she's a lot more blunt. But she's much more laid back than Danny. A lot more, I would say, likable than Danny. I think she kind of softens him up a little bit. So even though they kind of seem very dysfunctional, I argue that they are the most stable couple in the movie. I would argue that they have the healthiest relationship because they fight, they yell, they get it all out there. They let each other, especially that one fight they had in the hotel room where he opens up the door and opens up the window. It's like they do not hide how they feel. Like they, and it's kind of the opposite of Jack and Kate, who Jack just doesn't want to cause any drama. He doesn't want to make any waves, and Kate is just begging him to make a wave so they can communicate with each other better. Whereas Danny and Claudia don't have any issues with that. They are very open. They are very honest. They get it all out there, and then they make up. And they had a really sweet scene when they were on the boat, and she kind of goes over to him, and they kind of have like a sweet little moment. They were very cute, and they decide to skinny dip, and they're kind of like, I would say, I love Rita Moreno. She's the best. West Side Story, so many other things.
And then Jack, is it Jack Houseman? Was it
Jack Weston?
Jack Weston. He was the owner of the hotel in Dirty Dancing.
That's right.
Yeah.
God, that's right.
Yeah. So about six years later, so he's in Dirty Dancing. So that's the actor who.
It was driving me crazy what I knew him from. Thank you so much. All right.
And the other thing about it is that everyone gets annoyed with him.
Yeah.
But he's only just doing stuff that sort of needs to be done, like splitting the bill.
Right.
I mean, there is the one point where he does do the like 14, 9, and 22, and then he's like, well, let's just split it 3 ways. And then Alan Alda's like, well, then why did you even break it down?
Yeah.
You know, so it's just kind of, or like, I bought the liquor, you bought the food, you got the bread, or you rented the boat, and like, you subtract 5 from yours and 10 from yours and add 15 to that. But it's just like,
I love having someone like that around.
Me too.
So.
And that, again, that's just my personality because, you know, and again, people might find it annoying, but there are people who actually appreciate stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like for me, I don't want to pay for someone who decides that they want to get a bottle of Dom Perignon if I'm drinking a glass of water. So, yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to say
I got
that.
a Dr. Pepper and fried cheese. I'm paying $12.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not paying $75.
But yeah, so they were kind of my favorite just because they felt the most normal. They felt the most like relatable, I think. Even though I think Jack and Kate were supposed to be the relatable couple. At some point through the movie, I kind of just wanted to pop both of them upside the head and just be like, can y'all just shut up and just love each other? You know, can y'all just shut up and let things go? But Danny and Claudia, like I said before, they get it all out there. They communicate. I didn't fully think about that until we watched the movie. I was like, they kind of have it figured out. Like, it may not be perfect, but life never is. Life is messy. So then we have Nick and Ann. Nick and Ann are also another couple that it seems like they have a very loving marriage. They've been married for a very long time. They kind of have this, you know, back and forth. They have, you know, this history with each other. They know each other very well. But once you kind of figure out what's going on, you can read between the lines, and you kind of notice that, like, you know, Nick is a very hard worker. He's very proud of his job and the things that he has accomplished, and Ann kind of minimizes it a little bit, kind of makes jokes about it. I mean, Nick is being a little bit of a braggart. He is being a little bit of, I would say, being a little pretentious, and I feel like Ann's just kind of grounding him a little bit. But also at the same time, I see where Nick is coming from with, can you just say like, good job, or can you just not say anything? Like, you know, one or the other, or even like, that is so amazing. I mean, and that's not hard to say. I mean, you know, I feel like in a marriage, you're supposed to support your partner, not to treat them like shit. And I can see how he felt that way. Right. I mean, and again, looking back on it and watching it again, you kind of start seeing that a little bit better. Of course, in my 12-year-old mind, I wasn't picking it apart as much. My adult Anna self is like, whoa, she was kind of a bitch. Right, right. Like watching the series and then watching the movie, I was like, I immediately saw it. I was like, oh yeah, they're unhappy. Yeah. But Nick also feels like Anne doesn't really care about anything. She doesn't really want to do anything. She's very content with just existing and not trying new stuff. She never sticks with anything. She gives up easily. So in Nick's eyes, Anne is lazy with everything, kind of including their marriage. So in kind of the very beginning of the movie, Nick reveals that he's going to leave Anne. And so by the show and the film and the series both start in spring. They go in the same order of seasons in both adaptations. But yeah, so Nick leaves Anne at the very beginning of the movie, and then by summer, he's dating Jenny. So they kept all the names. Jenny, played by Bess Armstrong, who is a young blonde. I think they make a joke at some point that she's basically just like a young Anne. Or maybe that was in the series. I don't remember. It might have
been in the series. But I think the other thing with Anne that you brought up, and that was sort of happening in the pilot as well, is that they were really trying to make Anne unlikable.
Yes.
I mean, and it was from even like small details that I don't know if you picked up, but like rewatching the movie and the pilot, like the clothes she was wearing.
Right.
I mean, she looked like a grandma.
Yeah.
Her hair, like how slow she talked. It was like such an effort.
Yeah.
And, you know, they made her seem weak, like in the pilot, like when she didn't want to get up on the boat and she wanted it to drag her. And they just made her seem weak, and that it was her fault that things were falling apart.
So, and that's where I wasn't a fan of the movie compared to the series.
Really bad.
Because it felt like, and you know, you have to remember, as much as we love Alan Alda, this was written from a man's perspective in 1980. I'm assuming that's when he wrote it, or maybe earlier than that. I mean, the movie came out in 1981, but he had to have written it first. So it was probably in the late 70s, where divorce was still taboo and divorce was still not talked about. And it felt like for a really long time, and I appreciate the series for evolving the character of Anne. She was very Sandy Dennis coded in the pilot.
Yeah.
But as the series continued, she, you know, she became my favorite. She was like my favorite character by the end of the series. I fell in love with that character as like became such a kind of a badass, and she kind of became the person that like Nick always saw the potential of her becoming.
Yeah.
But in the movie, it felt like they made her unlikable in order to justify Nick wanting to leave her. And then you find out in the film that Nick had been having affairs, and that Danny knew about it. And I felt like there had to have been like, we need to justify why Nick left her. We need to justify why Nick cheated on her, but we can't make it Nick's fault. We have to make it Anne's fault.
Right.
And that rubbed me the wrong way in the film, because I was just like, no, that's not how it works. Like, he cheated on her. If he was really unhappy, then he should have left her a long time ago instead of having
affairs.
What it sounds like multiple affairs with multiple women. And in the series, I believe Anne is aware of it. We never really find out if Anne knew about it in the film, because she gets slowly kind of pushed out of the group.
Yeah.
By summer, I think you see her once in fall, and that's it.
Yeah, she's not even in winter.
Which I also... And then when they saw her in the fall, it was like she was still the same person. She was still like, I think I'm going to go to Borneo or where Czechoslovakia. Yeah, I was like...
I've never been there.
And it was like, just very much like... So... I don't know, like, how they handled that character in the movie really rubbed me the wrong way. I know it was a different time. I know they did it differently in the series, which I really appreciate, but they had to, because they were making 8 episodes out of it. So it was like, and also it was like, I think Tina Fey probably watched the movie, and then while writing the series, we're like, no, we got to give Anne a little bit, we got to kind of like validate her and give her like...
Well, give her more credit that I think it takes 2 to tango in a marriage.
Exactly.
I mean, I think both people are inevitably responsible in some way. I mean, obviously not in every marriage.
Right.
You know, both people aren't bad. Both people, you know, hopefully they're both good. But yeah, in the movie, I can see it much more. And then in the series, I mean, I think there were some of those same qualities. But again, you were just like, maybe they drifted apart.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, something happened, but she wasn't a bad person.
Right.
And I think in the movie they kept trying to make her seem bad, like when she took the hotel room.
Right.
Whereas in the pilot, when she did that, it ended up kind of being
in the
fun.
series,
In the
not the
series,
pilot,
when she did it,
because it was her. It was her hotel room.
Yeah.
Oh no, wait.
No, it was
I'm thinking
theirs.
about it the fall. Yeah, I'm thinking about it at the college. Yeah.
And yeah, so when she did it, I mean, she full on knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And it ended up being kind of funny.
Right.
Whereas in the movie, she knew what she was doing, but they made it seem just really horrible.
Right.
And so anyway, it was just little details like that I feel like Anne didn't get a fair shot in the movie.
Yeah.
They put the blame on her a lot.
Right. And I feel like that's what you kind of had to do not had to do, but that's just what you did back then, because I don't know, it felt like divorce was handled in such a way where like it had to be one person, it could only be one person's fault, and it usually kind of always fell to the woman for not keeping her man, or for not like, for all of that, and that's what happens a lot still to this day when people get divorced. The wife is often blamed for it because she's the one who's supposed to keep everyone together, and it's like, no, marriage is a two-way street, and it's we both have to put in 100%, and I think people forget that, so I'm glad that they changed it for the series. So Anne slowly gets pushed out of the group in the movie, and then Jenny kind of becomes more a part of the group, and then the movie kind of ends where they're at the winter house. Jenny's finally like, I've had enough of y'all suck, like I'm out of here,
y'all are so mean to me,
and I'm just Anne's replacement. She says something like that at the end of the movie, and she leaves. Both Jack and Nick have injured themselves, so Danny volunteers to go look for her. After Danny falls through some thin ice and is in like a frozen lake, Jenny goes to get help, and then they go and rescue him. They end up sinking the station wagon, which was really funny.
No, it was his new Mercedes.
Oh, it was his new Mercedes. I'm sorry, I was thinking of the station wagon at the beginning. Yeah, it was his new Mercedes.
Which
that's
is
right.
even more hilarious.
And so it kind of like at the end of the movie, it's like Jenny kind of seems like she's a part of the group now, and you find out at the very, very end of the film that she's pregnant. And the film kind of ends with them kind of, walking back to the house. They're all kind of laughing, kind of implying that like they're forming new memories, and this will be a story that they're going to tell 10 years from now, or if they end up staying together. So the film ends that way. It's a very...
But Anne is nowhere to be seen
right.
in the winter vacation, and by fall, like, she actually confronts them, like, y'all don't invite me, y'all don't come and see me, or ask me to lunch. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier when we were talking, is like, that's just sometimes naturally what also happens.
Yeah.
Like, were they also forcing a friendship because they kept having these trips? Were they really friends with Anne? So it does kind of make you think, and again, not that Anne's a bad person, but maybe they weren't really like compatible friends either. So the movie kind of changed that dynamic, and I really liked that because they did something different in the series.
Right. I liked that they were able to be friends with Anne and Nick separately. They kind of found a common ground because they did realize that they liked Anne, and they did realize that they missed having her around, and she did kind of become a different person after they split up and became more, independent and more fun and a little bit more adventurous and more started, becoming interested in pottery, started getting interested in music, and she started like kind of finding her own interests, and I really appreciated that. So.
And what I liked about it was maybe Nick wasn't right for her.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they were only together for so long because that's the way things were expected to be. Kind of like like you said, divorce was not accepted.
Right.
But I like that in the series where once she got away from Nick, she kind of vented her frustrations in summer. We saw that. Yeah. And then like fall, she was a little sassy when she took the room.
Well, she kind of had to, she also kind of had to step up and be kind of there for Nick and their daughter, because Nick and the daughter were fighting.
Right.
And she kind of had to be the mediator, and she hated it. But at the same time, she was like, y'all need to get over it. She kind of had to be the one that was like, y'all are both being ridiculous. She kind of had to become like the mature one, but she kind of had to be like the strong one.
Yeah.
And she kind of had to be the one that was like, no, y'all need to do this. Y'all need to stop doing this, and y'all need to start doing, like, she kind of became like more assertive. That's the word I'm thinking of. Like, she became more assertive and, kind of reminding Nick, like, we may not be in love anymore, but there was a time where I was in love with you, and there was a time where we were in love with each other. And at the end of the day, Nick realizes, like, you're a great person and you're a great mother. It just didn't work out between us. So by winter, they've kind of come to somewhat of a acceptance of each other. And, you know, the way the season ended was very emotional. I know we both teared up. And
what I liked was that they, like you said, they kept her in the friend group. They had a trip with her in winter where, you know, Nick went off to do something else. So she kind of got the friend group for one season, and he got the friend group for another season. And, you know, that might not always work out forever. But I liked that they kept that. Yeah. Because in the movie they didn't. She was gone by winter, and so that was kind of sad.
Yeah, no, and she was in fall, and then she was in spring, then she was briefly in fall, but then she was in the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and she wasn't in summer. Yeah, at all. Yeah,
at all.
Either.
They kind of talked about. I mean, they talk about her, but like it was always in the context of like, should we feel bad that we're not hanging out with Anne? And then eventually they just like stopped talking about her, period.
Yeah. So that was an interesting change from the movie that I actually did like. And so, yeah. Sorry, I was talking too much.
No, you're good. Okay. I mean, like, I guess I can tell the plot to the pilot. We kind of summarized a lot of the series as a whole, but so each episode, so every 2 episodes is a season. So the first 2 episodes are spring. In the spring, they go to Nick and Anne's lake house. And so we were first introduced to, I think, Jack and Kate, who pick up Danny and Claude to go to Nick and Anne's lake house. And, you know, at first, it's kind of like the same in the movie where everyone seems to be in this, you know, very loving relationship. And then Nick goes on a walk with Jack and Danny and tells them, "Hey, I'm leaving Anne." Basically, like basically the same reasons in the movie that we talked about. She doesn't try anything. He's kind of reached a point to where he wants to, like we said, their kids are in college now, and he's like, okay, well, this is the next chapter of our life. He wants to go on adventures. He wants to do new things, and she doesn't. And there's nothing wrong with either one. But it was just, they're not compatible anymore. And that happens a lot in marriages, especially when you get married young. So yeah, and I got a phone call just now. So I kind of lost my where I was. So I'll just kind of go back to what I was saying. So Nick tells Jack and Danny that he's leaving Anne, and that he just feels like she doesn't try, and that she doesn't want to do anything new. She never sticks to anything.
She doesn't excite him anymore.
Right. And so I think both Jack and Danny are kind of like, okay, well, I think you're just, you know, marriage is ups and downs, and you're just at a down right now, and just stick it out. And that's what you do in a marriage. You stick it out and you see things through. And so they're a little bit later, they go on the boat on the lake, and they all kind of impulsively jump into the water, and then you kind of see Nick and Anne kind of have like a little sweet moment. So Jack is sitting there thinking like, okay, well, maybe they're gonna work things out, and this is just a down moment in their marriage. That thought is completely diminished. You brought it up a second ago when Anne's trying to get back on the boat, and Nick is telling her how to get back on the boat by herself. And when he says, "Just try," she responds with, "I don't want to try."
Right.
So that couldn't be, and then Danny pulls her back on the boat, but that couldn't be a bigger metaphor for their relationship, is that Nick wants to try and Anne doesn't, which I felt like was a lot better of a way to do it rather than making Anne seem like the bitch. I mean, like, I think this was done a lot more where it's like, it's not necessarily her fault or his fault. It's just, I think she doesn't want to try, but I think Nick also doesn't want to be married to her anymore. I don't think it has anything to do with, I don't know, like they made it a lot more complex, and I appreciated that.
Yes, because in the movie, to me, they just made her seemed like a dud.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like,
it was like she was always like on Quaaludes or something.
Yeah.
It was
like,
just
like her slow
talked really slow.
Yeah. And she didn't seem to be able to make decisions on her own. Kind of very 70-ish.
Yeah.
Like kind of submissive. But
right.
in this, again, I like your perspective on that. Yeah, I found that to be kind of really what it was.
So, kind of Danny and Jack. Yeah, Danny and Jack kind of pick up on the metaphor of I don't want to try, and it's kind of like, okay. So Jack tells Kate about Nick wanting to leave, and Danny decides not to tell Claude because he wouldn't be able to hide it. Claude's a very reactive person. He talks a lot. He's very emotional, so it would be very obvious if he knew something was going on. So the next morning, Ann tells the group that she sent Nick to her favorite bakery about 2 hours away. She then surprises everyone by saying that she sent Nick out so she can set up for their surprise vow renewal. Which, knowing all of the information minus Claude, they're like, you are wasting your time.
Because they don't even know what to do.
And then that's how the episode ends, which is just a great way to just be like, okay, well, we got to watch the second episode. And that's exactly what we did.
Right.
We're like, yeah, this isn't going to be a show that we're just going to wait to finish watching. Like I said, we finished it in 4 days. Maybe 3, because maybe we watched like 4 episodes in one night or something like that. It's really easy watch. It's 8 episodes. The movie isn't that long from what I remember.
It goes fast.
Both the series and the show, but both the series and the movie both go by really fast.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked a lot. This has been one of our longest episodes in a while.
Wow.
So that wraps up this one. Happy 100th and 1 year anniversary.
And I thought it was perfect to do this in the end because it was all about 4 seasons, and we've now made it through 4 seasons of our pod.
We've come full circle.
Full circle.
All right, that wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right, so I'm going to do one for each of the seasons. Okay. So a flower for spring, a sun for summer, the leaf for fall, and a snowflake for winter. The broken heart, the car, the boat, the water, the donuts, the crawfish, because they have a crawfish, quote unquote, boil on the kitchen table. The bride and the groom for the vow renewal, the walking, the computer, because like another thing she does is she plays games like on her like iPad in bed. And that's about it. So, all right, well, we are going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening for 1 whole year.